You're fine. You're all good. All right, everybody. I am so excited for this interview. I can't wait. But first, I have an announcement. I decided to start a healing practice / business, and I decided to call it Ether Flows because a big part of what I do is work with the etheric field, work with the body's intelligence. And I just felt like it really resonated with how I work with clients' bodies, with their subtle bodies. And so I decided to turn everything into one big thing. And instead of having the channel called Interdimensional Fellowship Club, it's all going to be called the Ether Flows Healing Podcast. I didn't realize what I was doing was a podcast, but apparently that's what this is. So I thought it was just finding really awesome people that I find it fascinating to talk to and recording it, but apparently it's a podcast. So everybody, it's going to be called Ether Flows Healing Podcast, and I will, when the link tree and the website is fully up, I will put it up, and it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited about this project. It's amazing. So anyway, that was the, what do they call it? House cleaning sort of news. With me today is my friend Kerry. She lives in Scotland. She's a healer. She's a starseed. She is a galactic. She's a dragon. She knows about the dragons. Mm-hmm. She has a website called GalArtic where she makes orgonite and she does healing sessions, and she makes these amazing channeled paintings with different crystals and sacred geometry, and it's bonkers. It's bananas. You guys have to check her stuff out. She's a very powerful healer, and I think I got it all. Did I get it?
Yeah, I would say you've got it. I think you've kind of nailed it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk to Kerry. Here she is. Let's let her talk.
Hi, everyone. Well, she's introduced me. My name's Kerry. And I've been on this journey for, I don't know, since the day I got here, since the day I birthed my body into Earth.
You busted on through?
Yeah, busted on through. Yeah. And it wasn't a very nice transition. I didn't want to be here. That's very apparent from the day I was born. However, I sucked it up and here I am. I'm here to serve. I'm here to be what I'm meant to be for everybody, for humanity. And it's a very interesting process. Let's put it that way. You know, I'm only 41 years of age, but within that time, it's been a very interesting journey throughout those 41 years. So, yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's hear a little bit about your childhood, your family a little bit. Is there, how was it? Did you have kind of some paranormal experiences when you were young? Did you have anything sort of happen with that, or?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I used to see, I used to feel, I used to hear everything. And it was very confusing for me when I was a little girl. So, you don't know what that is when you're little. And obviously you'll speak to your parents, etc., and they think you've just got an overactive imagination. And I have memories from lying in my cot. I remember as far back as that, and this blue bear with blowing bubbles. And then it kind of developed into talking to beings on the wallpaper. So they used to come, and one particular looked like E.T. And he used to come.
You gotta be kidding me. I had that same thing happen.
Yeah.
And this was 4 years before the movie came out. I'm serious. Yeah. I had a guy that came and taught me how to fly around my house. This was when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And he looked just like E.T. Yes, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
And he used to come and he used to talk to me. And for me, that was normal. That was perfectly normal.
Yep.
But then, there's one time I recall I was out in my little red bike because I just learned how to ride my bike, and I'd fell off my bike. And as I fell off my bike, I could hear this massive booming voice from the sky, to the point I was absolutely terrified. I didn't know what it was. It was so loud. And I ran inside the house and I said, "Mom, mom, mom, the big guy in the sky is shouting at me." And my mom was like, "What?" And I was like, "The big guy in the sky." And I was absolutely terrified. And like for a wee period of time, my mum had difficulty in getting me outside because I was like, this guy is going to talk to me, like this big booming voice. And it's always stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. So I've never really understood what that was until obviously going through my process and, my awakening as such, and working on my energy field and discovering who I am as a soul. I've
Mhm.
kind of not got the full answer with regards to that, but I've got an idea of what that actually was. So it's very interesting. So I used to see things, I used to see spirit, I used to feel things intuitively, and I was quite a sensitive child. And, from that age, I was never really understood. In my childhood, it wasn't a very easy upbringing, if you know what I mean. It was like there was a lot of addiction, there was a lot of alcohol, like addiction,
Mhm.
etc., and a lot of like violence. But as a child, it's like I always had this innate ability to protect and look after. And that's kind of carried on throughout my whole life. This innate ability to protect, look after, sort of thing. And it wasn't until my teens, as you're a child, you get suppressed a little bit. Your parents like, "Well, you're making this up," and it kind of shuts it off. It did for me anyway. So it wasn't until I was in my teenage years I started seeing spirit again, and I thought I was going nuts. And I remember particularly driving on the road once, and I seen this dog in front of me, and I freaked out because I thought I was gonna hit the dog. It looked so real, but the dog went through the car. And I was like, "Whoa, what?" And I was like, "What happened?" And I had friends in the car, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna hit the dog." And they were like, "What dog? We don't see your dog." But I could clearly
Wow.
see the dog. So anyway, I was a little bit confuzzled about that. But I had a beautiful friend called Alexander at that period in time. And we were very close, we were very connected. And it wasn't until he actually transitioned that things really started happening for me.
Hmm.
He, his soul would come and speak to me and tell me particular things. And, I thought I was losing my mind with grief as such because, I missed him.
Right.
But it wasn't until I was getting confirmation of these particular things that he was telling me that I really started waking up to what was actually going on. So I then met a beautiful woman called Gladys Seller, and she is a practicing psychic medium here within Scotland. And I was really pulled to her to go for a reading. And she was reading my cards, etc. And she said, "Hold on a wee minute. I know the book you're reading, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to go upstairs and get the book that you're reading, and I'm just going to show it to you." And she went upstairs, she got the book, she threw it in front of me, and I went, "Can I swear on here? Am I allowed to
Of
swear?"
course you can. Yeah, yeah.
What the fuck? Oh, goosebumps, I'm getting tingles. So I was like, "Okay, I'm paying attention. What is this?" And from there, she kind of took my hand. She showed me the basics. She showed me,
What was the book?
oh, I can't remember. To be,
Oh my gosh. What?
can't remember because it was so long ago. We're
Ugh,
talking
such a
over.
buildup.
I know. Sorry. Hold on. I'm hearing Mia Dolan. Mia Dolan. So it was like Mia Dolan. She's not well known, but yeah, it was Mia Dolan. I can tell you what it was about. It was about her journey and her awakening to spirit and how she could see
Okay.
spirit, etc. So I was reading that
Awesome.
book to kind of get to grasp what was happening to me because I couldn't quite understand what was going on. So she threw me this book and I was like shocked. So then she took my hand, she showed me the basics, she showed me chakras, she showed me auras, and she was kind of like building me up. She spoke about the angels, etc. And there was one day I was sitting in our living room and I said, "You've helped me. Why don't you like create something where you can help others. So then she developed her development classes. So I used to go along and like be the guinea pig sort of thing, and she would like use me as the example, and I would help others alongside her.
Mhm.
So that kind of developed, and that went on for what, 14 years. And
Oh, wow.
I did really nothing with it. I did nothing
Yeah.
with it. I just knew the basics. I didn't know much about anything, but I could see auras, I could feel auras, but it was always there. And to me, it was just spiritual. That was it. It was just spiritual. It was nothing
Mhm.
epic. It was nothing like other than that. And it wasn't until 2020 that I had, let's say, a tower moment in my life, a huge
Mhm.
tower moment. In our beautiful Joanne Dunn from Ascension Evolution, she kind of reached out and she was like, I have to ask your permission, but would you like an energy clearing, etc. Now, bearing in mind, I only understood like angels, auras, chakras, etc. I had no idea with regards to energy. I had no idea with regards to multidimensionality or galactics or star seeds. Like that was not in my consciousness. That was not a knowledge base. That was nothing.
Mhm.
So she reached out and she done the energy clearing, and that was fine. I was plodding along for a couple of months, and then there was one night I was lying in bed, and the next thing I knew, my soul was yanked out of my body, and I could see everything. I could see everything in terms of the illusions, let's say, as we all know it, of the Matrix.
Mm.
I learned truth. I learned everything within that period of time. And for me, that was frightening. I was absolutely terrified, but it was almost like feeling into it now. It's almost like, is this one ever going to wake up? Is she ever going to like, well, she's not getting a choice in this matter. We're just going to yank it out and look. So I was
Right.
like, oh my God. And I remember the following morning, I contacted Joanne. I was like, oh, like I was freaking out. I was absolutely freaking out. I was
Oh,
like,
I'm sure. It sounds
yeah,
terrifying.
it was terrifying. Like, oh my God, and, I never seen it before, and I didn't know about this, and I didn't know about that. And she's like, okay, well done. You've kind of like popped your head out of the 3D, and you're now looking into the 4D, and it's okay. Just breathe. So
Mhm.
from there, I went into the rabbit holes. I was researching and researching and researching. I was just fascinated with absolutely everything. And then, things were started to be shared with me, like you're a star seed, you're a galactic, blah, blah, blah. And Joanne like helped give me the tools that helped me remember. So from the tools, what I mean is, I focused on my energy. I started clearing every day. I started shielding up every day. I started connecting into the earth, like grounding. And,
Mhm.
that was a practice, and it was getting into a routine of that and really figuring out, my energy and how energy works and what's frequency and what's vibration, because I had no idea. Like I had
Mhm.
absolutely no idea what all that was. And it wasn't until one evening I'd gone to bed and I was sleeping in obviously dream time, and this blue being appeared in my dream. And he was like, "Oh, I'm here to heal your meridians." And I remember saying in dream time, going, "What the fuck is meridians?" Like, I had no idea what meridians were. I had no idea. So he did what he did because I was poorly at that time. I remember I was poorly at that time. The next morning, I woke up and I felt brand new. And I was like, "What is this?" Like, so that threw me into another, channel. I was looking into what's meridians, etc. And a couple of weeks later, he comes back into dream time. He's like, "You need to paint this."
Mm.
And I was like, "Paint it? Like, what do you mean I need to paint?" And I just got this innate, strong, like, feeling that I had to go and get paint. I had to go get canvas. I had to go buy paints. And, that was it. I had to do it. But at that time, like, I was financially constricted as such because obviously, not having the knowledge base, etc., and with energies and, my environment, I was coming from a poverty consciousness, and that's been a journey, like trying to, break out of that poverty consciousness.
Oh yeah.
So, I was like, how am I going to get this? Like, how am I going to be able to get paints, etc.? And all of a sudden, people started gifting me paints and brushes and canvases, and I was like, okay.
Oh man, that's so cool.
Okay. Yeah. So the more that I was tuning into like my energy, etc., I started seeing, the blue being who is now known as Philip Joe. I call him Philip Joe. He's an Arcturian, right?
Okay.
And I didn't know that at the time, but the more that I started working, the more that I started connecting, the more that I was going with my intuition, I started painting. And I started creating these paintings of like the Arcturians, and then I created this painting for our beautiful Joanne. And I gifted it to her for a Christmas. And she said, "Are you aware of what you've done there?" And I was like, "No, it's just a painting." Like to me, it was just a painting. And she's
Mhm.
like, "No, you've actually channeled like a multi-dimensionality." And I was like, "A what?" So I was like, "What have I done?"
So at that point, was it just paint? Like you
It
had
was
just made just a straight up painting?
just a straight up painting. Just
Okay.
a straight up painting.
Did you
So
feel anything coming in? And
yeah, I just like could see it visually. I couldn't
okay.
understand why at that moment
Mhm.
in time because obviously, I was quite low in consciousness as such. And I wasn't like I was just learning everything all over again. Okay, I had that knowledge of spirituality and the basics, but channeling? What was that? I didn't know what that was, if you know what I mean.
You
So
just you
yeah,
basically just were like in the zone. You were just
I
like,
was
I
just
am having a great time.
yeah,
And
just in the
okay.
zone, and it was just coming through me, and I connected to Lindsay Sterling. I absolutely love Lindsay Sterling, by the way. I love her. I love her. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
the more I listened to Lindsay, the more like I could feel everything light up with inside me. Like everything started lighting up the more that I listened to her music, and the more I found it easier to paint. So I painted that and I was taken aback that I'm like, I've actually channeled, like, okay, like what's going on with this?
Mhm.
And Philip Joe was like, "You need to paint me now." And I'm like, "Okay, what do I do here? Like, how do I do this?" So I had a beautiful session with Ryan Derowan or Rion Derowan, sorry, Rion.
Mhm.
And I mentioned the paintings to him, like, I'm getting a feeling I need to paint, etc. And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. You heard sacred geometry?" And I was like, "What's sacred geometry?" Like everything was
Yep.
like, "What?"
I know. That's kinda how I kind of just, like, bumble into everything too. I'm like, "What's a chakra?" Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And
I
people
was
just come into your life, and it's so synchronistic, and, like, they just
mhm.
come into your life and, like, drop all this knowledge and wisdom and, help you with your energy body, and then,
Yeah,
either they're on their way or, whatever happens, but, like, I love that. That's how you know you're in alignment with your purpose, is when
yeah,
just all this
yeah.
magic kind of unfolds.
Oh, magic. Like, I can't even begin to tell you magic. There's not a word for this. It just blows my mind. So sacred geometry, and I'm like, okay. And then he's like crystals, and then this is what you do with the crystals, and blah blah blah. And then I see this, and I had no idea. He went on, and I was like, I had no
Yeah.
idea until after I had that session with Rion, and I sat with it all, and everything just started coming through. And I was like, okay, right, let's give this a bash. So I had the funds, I went and bought a canvas, but it had to be a massive canvas, not just a nickel canvas. We're talking a big canvas.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I looked at the canvas and I was like, where do I even begin? I had no idea how to do this, what to do. So I just went with it. I ended up drawing the flower of life. And then all of a sudden, I drew Metatron's cube. And then I placed the crystals on Metatron's cube. And then I was like, okay, all right, that's all right for my first go. Like that was the first time I'd ever drawn geometry, but for some reason and somehow it just flowed through me. There was no mistakes, there was nothing. I didn't even have to rub it out. It just came through me. It's like I'd always known it. It's always been within me to create this. So I was like, okay, let's paint Philip Joe now. And I started painting him, and I was just like, I had to stand back from the painting and go, I don't, who did that? Like, I was like, I didn't do that. Like, who did that? And I was
Yeah.
like, where is all this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I've created Philip Joe. What do I do with him? Like, what do I do with him? And I felt like I had to keep him, and it was for me. And that energy was working with my energy, and it was going to help me with my evolution and my growth and my expansion. And I was like, okay. Then one morning I woke up and I heard create your website, and I was like, oh. So I was like, okay. So I just went for it. I just created my website. Now, bearing in mind, I had an innate, strong feeling to go create a website. So I tried and I tried, and I just couldn't gel. It just wouldn't gel. I just couldn't create it. But that morning that I felt go and create it now, it just happened. I had a website by the end of the day. I had items on that website. I had Philip Joe on the website. It just happened.
Wow.
And GalArtic was born. Like GalArtic was birthed. And I was like, what do I do with this? Like, where's this going? And the more I really kept working on myself and working on my energy and my consciousness and doing my healing, like doing my shadow work, because this is a huge part of this.
Hmm.
Um, the more my field was expanding, the more information that I was receiving, and I would start visually seeing paintings that had to be created and geometric patterns that needed to be created within that geometric patterns. And it's been practice for me. Like these past 4 years have been a huge like learning ground for me with regards to everything that I'm doing. So I started creating more and more paintings, and it's quite interesting when you look back to 2024 to where I am now with regards to the paintings. You see the paintings actually grow and evolve with me. And what I started to learn as I'm doing these paintings is that the paintings are literally channeled multidimensionally, but they also have a very specific meaning coming up to energetic gates. I didn't know any of this at all. I just
Oh, so you kind of get the urge to do a painting, like it's almost like,
get it
say,
done.
11:11 comes up. Yeah, it's like scheduled almost. You
Mhm.
start getting that
Yeah,
painting
yeah.
itch,
I
and it's
just
like,
start to
oh, this gets finished on this certain day.
Yeah, yeah. And like the beginning of the paintings, it was just geometric shapes and like basic crystals, and I'd crush the crystals down to a powder. And then I was like, okay, like I just intuitively feel as to what was needed for those paintings at that moment in time. But as I'm growing and evolving, they're becoming more complicated. They're more like I don't know, that's Oberon behind me. So
Oh
it's like
yeah.
almost like geometric patterns, and they all connect, and it creates like an energy field. And what's interesting with regards to the paintings now is that I can reach in and pull out that energy field. And it just, you think of Doctor Strange, it's a bit like Doctor Strange. Oh,
Oh.
goosebumps. It's like I can go in and just pull that energy field out into the collective or whatever is required at that moment in time.
Oh, okay, yeah, you just do it. Yep, I'm seeing it right
Oh,
now. You can just do it. You can kind of do it with your body and with your mind, and you just push the energy out.
just push the energy out, and they're
Okay.
becoming more complex and more like intricate. And the last painting that I did, which is called The Observers, that took 9 months to create, from the minute that I started receiving the information and the geometry and the patterns to the crystals. Because through that time, as I was creating the painting, I was doing a lot of shadow work, but the painting on a geometric form and the energetic field was bringing things up to the surface for me. So what's shown to me now is that when I create these paintings, it brings up what needs to be brought up, so I am able to talk about what that painting could possibly do for that person's energetic
Yeah,
field if they were to connect with it or have a print of it. Or it's bonkers. It's absolutely
that's amazing.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So from there, like from the paintings, I started intuitively feeling into creating organite. And I've started, hold on, I've got a few pendants here. 2 seconds.
Yeah, I want to see your pendants.
Yeah. So it's like I started creating what frequency pendants. So this is like, oh, I don't know if you can see it. My
The
little
ankh.
Yeah, so it's resin and it's copper, like it's gold copper. And there's always a
Oh,
hint
okay.
on them, but there's crystals within, like crushed crystals within that resin sort of thing. And it like creates an energetic field. So I
Oh,
started
wow.
creating these, I started creating like different geometric shapes, except it's just it just
Oh, I
happened.
love that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like it reminds me of the tri-wave.
Yeah, the Tricreta, yeah, the Celtic, and it wasn't until I actually created my
Trifecta.
own. Right, that's it, right. I'm not very good when it comes to words, just bear with
That
me.
that word just popped into my mind. I don't use
So I
it.
started creating, like, organite, and I'm just getting pulled into creating all these different things, and, like, meditations and energy sessions and,
What do you do with your sessions? Like what do your sessions consist of?
well, I intuitively feel like it begins with a chat and a conversation to see where they are on a consciousness level, obviously. And, I can part advice. I can't tell anybody what to do because that's not how this
Sure.
works as such. So I part advice if they're requiring any advice or whatever. But I do work alongside a quantum device.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you a little bit about that
Oh,
quantum
can we
device.
pause it just for a second?
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
Okay,
Healing sessions.
so where was I? Healing sessions. Yeah, the quantum device. So I'll talk a little bit about how that quantum device came into my reality because it was not expected. And that again took me down a whole other rabbit hole with regards to like how this works in the energy field, how the energy field works, how frequency and vibration works in the energy field. And then we went into the emotional bodies and how shadow work is so important
Yeah, I
throughout.
wanna talk about shadow work too.
Yeah, throughout your whole ascension journey. And it wasn't until December 2021 I was working on an actual painting. And I was due to go and see my mother that morning. She'd been poorly and I'd been looking after her, but I sat in the car and something made me go, "No, don't." And I was like,
Mm,
"Oh, okay. Well, I'll go and visit her once, I've picked my two girls up from school." But that afternoon, I had a phone call, and the phone call was to say that my mum had unfortunately transitioned, and she was found in her bed. Again, another tower moment. Okay, these are for me might resonate with you, but tower moments are quite important. So I was like, okay, and I had to deal with that and go through that process. So the paintings went on hold, and then obviously, we're working through the shadow as such. And it wasn't until one evening I was lying in the bath, working on my energy, and I started thinking about my mum. And I started thinking about how could I have helped her in the physicality? Like knowing what I know, how could I have helped my mum? And I started feeling about a device. So I started looking into devices. I was like, is there such a thing? And I found, is it the Rife device? And I looked
mm,
into that. And I
right.
was like, okay.
Frequencies.
Yeah, frequencies and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, right. So there's such a thing as that. Well, if that's meant to come into my reality, it will. But the very next day, I was having a conversation with my cousin. She's like, "Oh, I've just had this amazing session, and it's with a frequency device." And I was like, "Oh, that's funny because I've just started looking into these." And I was like, "Was it the Rife?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "What was it?" And she said, now some people may get a little bit triggered when I say this because, there's different belief systems around this device. She said the Healy, but I was like, okay, what's a Healy? Is it like a massive thing? And she was like, no, it's like a tiny little thing. And she's like, oh, I could maybe see if I could get like the woman to contact you. And So the woman contacted me, and my mind was blown at this moment in time. And I was like, okay, what is this? So I then started researching it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get one. Like, yeah, I'm just going to
Wh-
get one.
What is it?
So it is a very small device. This is it. Oh, it's tiny wee. Oh, you
Oh,
can't.
okay.
Okay, it's
I can
tiny,
kind of, yeah, I can see it.
tiny wee. And what it does is it locates your energy field within the quantum, and it literally reads your energy field. Okay. Now, the way I work with it is completely different to how other people work with it. So I've kind of like pooled it and made it my own. So it's almost like it works with my energy. It's really bizarre. I protect it. I literally, speak to it in light language, and I
The
literally give
machine.
the machine instructions
Okay.
and how to work with that individual, and it gives me feedback as to what's going on within that person's energetic field. So I then
Oh,
discuss
wow.
the feedback with regards to what's going on, and we talk through it. And it's fascinating. It can tell me what's going on in the psyche, it can tell me what's going on within the meridians, it can tell me what's going on within your chakras, where your blockages are. It can literally tell me where your blockages are, like in terms of achieving what you want to achieve in life. Like it's
Mhm.
and I would say 98% of all the sessions that I've had with the Healy has been 100% accurate
Wow.
from my.
Do you get the messages like clairvoyantly or clairaudiently, or like does the machine tell you? How does that work?
I get the messages, so I mainly go on my intuition first, and then I look at what the Healy's actually reporting back. And
Okay.
it kind of like coincides. So intuitively, I will feel, I will hear, and I will see. So I then base the sessions on that.
That
And
is
then
brilliant. Oh,
yeah,
that
and
is
then
amazing.
move forward. But what's really interesting is because I've pulled it from, that marketing, that corporate side of like, this is what you do with the helium, this and you play with the helium this way, and this is what it can do. I
Right.
pulled it from that because I felt like how do I say this? I just felt a dense energy around it, and I felt like it was mainly.
Oh, yeah, like the grids around it were kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
corporate, weird,
Yeah,
icky.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
got
want,
it.
my heart is, I believe to be quite pure. And I always go with pure intention and pure heart led. So I kind of pulled it from that and made it my own. Hence why
Yeah.
I speak to it the way I speak to it. I intuitively use it the way I use it. And it's interesting because the Healy has evolved as I have evolved. So I use it completely differently now with
Mhm.
regards to, and I create particular containers within my beautiful Patreon where people can access, the frequencies, etc. And that's a story for another day. And people can work alongside with them. They don't actually have to have a session with me to be able to use them. And what's beautiful is that the frequencies are basically designed to work with that person's energy field as and when they require and as and when they need.
Hmm.
So there's, it works for them on a level that they require at that moment in time.
Oh, that's so cool. That's kind of, I mean, I feel like it parallels a little bit how I communicate with my organite
Mhm.
is, and I feel like most people don't know that you really can communicate with it and you can
Oh,
work with it
mhm,
on several different levels, like, I mean, I didn't even really know what organite was. For me, as far as like the crystalline kingdom stuff goes,
mhm.
I didn't really feel much resonance towards it until I was given a piece of Andara, and the Andara is what really, like, it was crazy. It was like
You.
having a little conscious friend with me where I'm like, "Okay, can you clear my foot chakras?" Or, like, "Can you
Yeah.
help me with this? Can you help me with that?" And it would start to happen, and I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy." I'm having like a two-way conversation with a rock, with a piece of volcanic glass over here. And then I was introduced to organite and I was like, "What? This just looks like junk."
Oh,
Honestly. I was like, you're crushing up all these crystals and you're like putting them in a chunk of plastic, and what is that supposed to do? But I ended up getting some, and I was able to communicate with it in the same
Mhm.
way as I could with Andara's. And so now, like, it's like a two-way relationship with these pieces that I have. It's great. So
Mm.
and you're right, it does evolve. It totally
Yeah,
evolves
of
with your
course it does.
consciousness.
Yeah,
So,
it does because it works alongside your consciousness. So as you grow and evolve, and work on your shadow work, and we'll talk about that. We definitely will talk about that. Work on your shadow work. Obviously, your consciousness is going to expand, but that consciousness is also going to expand with you because it's a vast consciousness. And it's full of knowledge, but it's almost like you have to reach that vibration within yourself to be able to obtain that information from that consciousness, hence why it grows and evolves with you. That's what I believe, and that's what I feel.
yeah.
It's interesting with regards to the paintings. The paintings are the same. And if you think about it, like sacred geometry is a huge part of who we are and of what we're made of. If you go to the cells within the body and you put them under a microscope, what are they? They're sacred geometric patterns. They're made of sacred geometry. They're patterns. They're
Yep.
energy.
What's a snowflake?
Yeah,
Sacred
exactly.
geometry.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
look at water, everything around you is sacred geometry. So it's fascinating how the paintings work because it speaks to your cells, it speaks to your DNA, and it speaks to your cellular for everything to come up to the surface. So in essence, throughout my whole journey, I've found different things that's brought me into an understanding of how like my paintings work, of how the Healy works, of how, the pendants work, but I'm also shown how that works. But me being me, it's like, okay, I need to have confirmation with regards to that. So
Mhm.
I like to do my research. I like to go in deep as to how that works, why that works, and experiment and play with certain things. So it's like I know that that does work, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
it's it's been a fascinating journey. Hold on,
Yeah.
saying that.
Sounds like it. Jeez. So let's talk a little bit about shadow work.
Mm.
What is your definition of shadow work?
Whew. My definition of shadow work is looking in the mirror and seeing versions of you that you've maybe not been aware of, that you've maybe refused to look at, and um, facing some ugly truths and owning those ugly truths, but also looking at every single bit of trauma that you've experienced in your life and looking at that dark version of the self. So it's all you've got the light version, you've got the dark version. So for me, it was like really connecting into that dark version of myself and really understanding that dark version of myself in asking why I did things the way I did things and why things happened the way they happened, and start understanding that, start loving that, start connecting with that, and start releasing that from my energy field. Because what I've discovered, as we go through life, certain things happen to us, and these like there's energy. It's an energy, right? It's a consciousness. It sits in the consciousness field, but it also sits in your energy field, and the more like dense experiences you've had in your life might make
No,
you
no, no. I'm just releasing energy. Don't
am I
worry.
boring
And
you?
while you're talking and while I'm looking at this painting, I'm getting these like crazy downloads. So I'm like, my whole body is buzzing. So I think I'm just releasing stuff. Don't worry.
I'm a
You're not boring me at all.
I'm a cheeky
It's so
bugger. You'll discover this, right? So
also, I just wanted to show you man, I love shadow work. Check this out.
yeah, romancing
It's
the
like
shit.
holding up my laptop right now.
Yeah.
I am such a fan of shadow work.
Yeah.
It changed everything. It's changed my entire reality.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's changed my entire reality. And so let's say 5 years ago, I'm a complete different version as to who I am now. So 5 years ago, I was very scared, very depressed, very overweight. Um, my light had gone, like completely vanished. Um, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was
Mhm.
so deep within the illusion, the matrix as such. Um, I was just finding life really, really difficult at that moment in time. There was just so much going on in my life. There was so much happening. I just didn't want to be here anymore. And, by the God of grace, I was pulled out of that and I was shown, there's more than this. There's more than, what you've experienced. And it was interesting because back then I was very much in the victim mentality. Why is life happening to me? But yeah, yeah.
Yep.
You go through that. So obviously,
You're in that, sorry to interrupt, but like you're in that mindset and then all this terrible stuff happens and you're like, why is this happening to me? Must just be me. I'm a bad person or whatever. And it's like this cycle of victim and guilt and shame and self-loathing, and it's just such a downward spiral.
yeah, it's a downward spiral. Like there was so much bitterness, there was so much resentment. I was pointing fingers at everyone. I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. I lived in like hoodies and leggings. I couldn't even look in the mirror. And I would just like, it was just a really horrendous cycle that I was in. And it was like when they pulled me out and I could see everything, it was like, I was a complete shock to the system. So obviously, my energy field at that moment in time, my consciousness at that moment in time was very, very low and very dense. So as and when I started working on my energy and got the tools with regards to that, I went through some really dark nights of the soul, as such as they're known, and horrific purges, like horrific. I would work on my energy and all of a sudden I would like start vomiting out of nowhere because I was releasing that energy from that body and it was almost like an exorcism. And I was
Mhm. That's happened to me too, where you're just purging so hard, like you can't keep any
no,
food in your stomach.
no.
Yeah.
And I remember nights I could like sit on the couch and I was like felt so ill, could barely keep my eyes open. And I was like trying to understand what was going on with me at that moment in time. And that's okay. But, I had to really look at a lot of things. I had to go through a lot of things throughout my whole awakening. Throughout this whole ascension process, I've lost many friends like that have transitioned. I lost a baby that transitioned. You know, I've had to deal with a lot of shadow as I go through this process. So before that process, we worked on that. We worked on why life happened, why things happened. And still to this very day, Gina, like, I do my shadow work absolutely every time. If something comes up for me and I'm feeling something, I'll go in deep. Like, I'm so thankful for the rabbit hole as such because it taught me how to investigate. It taught me how to go in deep. It taught me how to connect. And what I discovered was, throughout this whole journey, I was so disconnected as to who I was. And I had to sit there and go, well, who the fuck am I? Like, I didn't know who I was.
And that seems like such a low, it seems like a shameful thing to do, like
Mm,
admit that you do not know who you are. But at the same time, once you do that and you're like, all right, that's it. I'm going to start from scratch. I don't know who I am. I don't know what the truth is.
mhm,
I don't know why I'm here. I don't know anything. It's very freeing and it gives you the opportunity to start listening to yourself
mhm.
and start investigating.
Yeah. And it like that investigation within itself, and still to this day, I'm investigating. Like even this week, I've been going through a really deep, deep shadow process. And it's freeing. Like as you're doing this journey, you feel like, yeah, I've done it, I've nailed it, like I've got through it. But no, there's always something that presents itself that,
If you're still here, you still
yeah,
got work.
yeah, that you have to work on. So, the purges were horrific. Um, but the more I did the shadow work, the lighter I became, the more I started connecting into my joy, the more I started to figure out who I was. And you've got the mind, body, soul. And it's like, for me, shadow work was working on my mind, was working on my soul, but my body had to catch up. And that was, once I felt good within working on my mind and my soul and knowing who I was and going through all these purges and connecting the dots and going back to my childhood, because majority of everything that I was holding on to stemmed from my childhood,
Yep.
and releasing that. But not only that, it stems on a multidimensionality and ancestral as well. If you'd asked me any of this stuff 5 years ago, I would have went, I have no idea what you're
Uh-huh.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like it's just angels, and it's just angels. Anyway, it just don't make sense. It's just
Oh
angels.
man, there's
Tell
so
me
much more.
how it is.
It's like overwhelming how much more there is. That's kind of what that's kind of my thing that I'm concentrating on right now is in my journey I've done so much research and I have read so many other people's truths and I've listened to so many other people's truths and this guy on YouTube and this lady on YouTube and yada yada. But what the heck is my truth, you know? And
Mhm.
that's been my big challenge since basically since 2020, with like
Mhm.
with the the big stuff that happened in 2020 and all the options and all these different talking heads telling you that if you don't quit eating meat or if you don't do this or if you do that you're not going to ascend and going into fear because you don't know your truth. And God, I went through a couple years of just like feeling kind of like this empty soda bottle in the ocean and you're just like going with the waves and you're like I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know what my truth is, and I feel like I'm finally starting to understand like how to feel into my body
Mhm.
to understand my truth. And also like I have such I have such a time. I get really flustered when I read or when I learn when I think about how infinite and how complicated and how
Mhm.
like how much there is out there, how much more it is than angels. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
man, I've gotten so overwhelmed with like reading certain material or like being like, okay, I have to deal with my 7 subtle bodies and my chakras and my astral body and the grids and my personal grids and blah, blah, blah. There's so much. And I've really just started to learn recently how to just see myself as a tube of light.
Mhm.
Focus on the tube of light and breathe and just talk to source. I
Mhm.
don't have to talk to my guides. I mean, I can, but for me, it's like if I keep things as simple as possible,
Mhm.
that's what keeps me grounded. That's what
Mhm.
keeps me centered
Mhm.
and keeps me on my journey from
Mhm.
not being overwhelmed because there's
Yeah,
so much information out there.
there
And it's
is.
like, and I started this whole journey because I wanted peace. And it's like that stuff does not give me peace, really. It just makes me feel like, oh, I'm still at this level and I'm not blah 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 blah. And it's if it's
No,
not love or above, don't even deal with it.
yeah. And the thing is, what I've learned is you're exactly where you're meant to be at this moment in time. And what I
Exactly.
did, it's not been an easy journey the past 4 years, as much as magical as it may sound, and as much as like, oh, and I did this, this, and this, that, I had to step up for myself. And there was sometimes I was like, I just can't
Yeah.
be arsed doing this anymore. This is getting too hard. It's getting too overwhelming. It's getting too confusing.
Yep.
But the thing is, when you start embarking on this consciousness journey, and when you start connecting into yourself and you start, accessing your abilities as such, your gifts, there's no going back. The universe, speaks in so many languages, and you know, for all those beautiful souls that may watch this and know me, I'm a bugger. Like I am a bugger. I'll go 100 miles per hour and I'll try and like dip my fingers in so many pies and the universe will go slow down and it'll knock me on my backside. But for me, what I've recognized now is like, okay, I'm listening because you know, I can get myself overexcited with regards to things. And that's teach that, well, the universe knocking me on my backside teaches me to slow down, to take note, to like go inner. What's your soul telling you? Because, like you said, there's so many external influences, and I'm grateful for those external influences at the beginning of my journey because I needed to hear all the different perspectives to find my truth, you know.
Mhm.
I needed to learn all these different tools to work on my energy, to build up my frequency, to build up my vibration. Because you know, you need that. You need all those different perspectives. But what I also learned is that I had to use my intuition with regards to that. Does that person feel right for me? Does that person not feel right for me? Because we're all in different levels, we're all in different pathways, you know, like what one person will resonate and one person won't. People that watch this might not resonate with me at all, and that's okay because
Right.
obviously their energy doesn't require what I'm sharing at this moment in time. And that's the beautiful journey of it. If you know what I mean, it's like you learn these tools to work on your energy, but then you start learning your own tools and then you start learning what actually works for you. So the more I worked on my shadow, the more my field started to expand, the more like my painting started to expand, the more the creations came online, the gifts came online. And there's still some things coming in at this moment in time. And it will continue that way. The more I work, the more, you know, I break through these blockages, I break through these barriers that I'm here to break. And like I said before, the big, huge one is the poverty consciousness. And what I've
Oh
discovered
yeah.
is, you know, the spiritual community, if you actually look at it, there's a lot of poverty consciousness within that community because they don't feel it's okay to charge or etc for their gifts, right? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that there is a ton of separation.
Mhm,
There's a lot of fear. Oh, there's
mhm.
so much fear-based information out there.
Yeah.
Um, it's still pretty tribalistic, I feel like. And that's kind of I've said this on other episodes too, but like that was one of the main points of me starting this channel was I wanted to reach out to different communities and to
Mhm,
try to act as a bridge. You
mhm,
know, that's why I'm talking about like my experiences with Sasquatch and with
mhm,
ETs and with everything and reaching out to like mediums who use tarot cards for political stuff or like you or you know you have the organite people or you have contactees or people who have had NEDs like just I would like to make a more inclusive community because I do feel like there's a lot of separation still.
yeah, but that, you know, for me, it's because we're all one. And
Yeah.
that's what I've discovered. We're all connected. If you look like a sacred geometric pattern, so we're all sacred geometry and we all connect in that way or form in a consciousness level and a vibrational level, but there's many different layers to that. But it all comes together as one because we
Mhm.
are because we are creator, we are divine, and you know, that's within ourselves and our DNA, and we just connect in that way, that light body form. And it's beautiful. But you know, I agree there is a lot of separation, etc. But then again, you know, um, it depends where they are on a consciousness level, how much shadow work they've
True.
done. You know, have they connected to that shadow, etc. And you know, I was part and of that spiritual community as such. You know, for me, like I said, it was just angels and oracle cards and seeing auras. There
I
was nothing
didn't even know what shadow work was
really.
until last year, really. And I've been into this for a few years now too. So it's like I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people are just trying, well not trying to, but like wanting to kind of stay out of their bodies and stay up in the ethers connecting with angels and stuff. And it's like, no, you really, I mean, our job is to be here. Our job is to
Be human.
be, yeah, to be a celestial and then also to be of the earth. You know,
Mhm.
we're supposed to have both
See,
energies. So
yeah.
that's why grounding, I mean, grounding for me is, it's not always easy.
No, it's not. And, you know, I'm guilty of that, as I started going through my awakening and, connecting into vibration and multidimensionality, etc. It was quite airy fairy, I was quite, head in the cloud, etc. And
People love
completely,
that at first though, because it's such a change from
yeah,
what you've always experienced.
yeah. But what I discovered was I was so disconnected from the human. And it's like, okay, I know who my
Yeah.
soul is, but who is the actual human? Like, who is the human Kerry? Like, what does the human Kerry like? Where's the human's joy? What makes her happy?
Right.
Um, I trained as a dancer, so I was so disconnected from that. I enjoyed that as a human. So it's like, okay, well, I'm 5 stone overweight. So how do I connect into that again? So, like I said, the mind and the soul you kind of work on, but the body needs to follow because the body is actually the human. So you do your shadow work, but you also do need to connect into the human side. That's why we're here. We came here to experience the human experience, right?
Well, that's what the shadow work kind of, that's how it ties into being a human. You have to accept all parts of yourself. You have to
Mhm.
accept what your conscious mind might perceive as being unacceptable or bad.
Mhm.
And that's like loving your body unconditionally. And I love, man, I love mirror work. Mirror work is so important for me. And like I'll go a couple of days. I'll notice that I'll like go a couple of days without looking in the mirror and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I need like," it's kind of a, for me anyway, it's kind of a difficult practice to keep up on because I notice I don't want to look at myself and I've always been that way. And so trying kind of like training yourself into doing that. You can tell yourself you love yourself all you want, but like
Yeah.
actually looking at yourself in the mirror, in the pupils and being like, "No dude, I seriously love you." All the like parts that you've always thought were like garbage and you always tried to hide. Like
Mhm.
that's us. That's us.
Mhm.
It's not even just me, it's us. Like I feel like this light body is like a composition of so many different aspects. And it, for some reason, when I say us about myself, I get a different feeling. It's almost like, ah, we're finally accepted,
Mhm.
you know? So
Mhm.
I love doing mirror work when I remember to do it.
Yeah, mirror work is, that was part of my journey, mirror work. And I used to see a version of myself at the beginning. And I used to be like, oh, I would love to be that version of myself. I would love to be able to achieve that. But in order for me to achieve that, I really had like do the mirror work. I had to look in and look at all the parts that I didn't like about myself, and the days I used to sob and cry because I hated myself. Like I really had
Mhm.
to connect with that, and that's a difficult thing to do. Recognize that human part
To
of.
even talk about it, it's so, everyone thinks it's so like it's been normalized that like humans should feel so much shame for all of this stuff that's like not your, it's beyond your control. Like you don't control what you look like, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, I guess you could, but like,
No.
and there's so many aspects of yourself that like really want to work with you. Like my body. I remember there was a time I was working with my mentor and she told me, she was like, "Your body, you and your body are just at war and you've always been at war. You've always been battling." And
Mhm.
at first I had no idea what she was talking about, but then I was like, "Oh my gosh, all the times I've told myself you're fat or you're like not, you know, like your hair is too thin or you're too short or whatever, like you're fighting your body and your body really wants to work with you.
Well,
It's
your
got its
body.
own consciousness, but it's like it's
Mhm.
supposed to work with you, and the more that you kind of reject yourself and reject your body, that's what causes disease, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that you just don't wanna be in your vessel, your body as such, so you
Mhm.
sabotage it, right?
Yeah.
You do, you sabotage it. You sabotage it with the food you eat, etc. But what was interesting, do you know how you mentioned, listening to other people, don't eat this and don't eat that and don't do this and don't do that.
Mhm.
Did all of those things, right? I stopped eating meat. I stopped doing particular things. And, it served a purpose. It served a purpose. It helped with my energy. It helped with my vibration. But the more that I've connected into the human, Kerry, the more I realize that I need like some of those particular things to ground back into my body,
Yep.
to make sure that I am grounded in my body and experiencing everything that I need to experience whilst I'm on this earth plane, if you know what I mean. So, for instance, I got particularly unwell when I was, pregnant, and I was really ill, like really, really ill, Gina. And I could like feel myself lying on the couch, but I could feel like my soul was just not wanting to be part of that. It's like, nope, nope,
Kind of just floating up.
yeah, floating up. And, I was like, okay, like this isn't normal. This doesn't feel right. And I heard spirit say, you need to eat meat. You need to
Mhm.
eat what body
I've had
needs.
the same thing. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, and it was all this fear came around this. Like, do I like, oh my God.
Yep.
And I was absolutely terrified eating a little bit of chicken, like a little bit of chicken. I was terrified. And I was like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. And, I ate a little bit of chicken and I felt so much better. Now, some people could argue that's the placebo, and that's fair enough, because you believed it that it would make you feel, but I didn't. I didn't know. I just had to go with the flow and listen to what my actual body was asking me to do, and my body was asking me to eat a bit of meat because it needed that. I'm like, that's how my body's designed. That's how my vessel is designed. It needs that bit of protein. And
Me
yeah,
too.
you can get like protein from plants, etc. And that's what I was doing. But my soul just didn't want to connect with the body because it just couldn't ground in. I need that because I like to disappear quite a lot. I need particular things to keep me grounded and within the body so I connect into everything. And that's been an interesting journey because you learn so many things and you allow external influences to gauge your journey as such. Like I said,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
yeah, it's beneficial, it serves a purpose, but you get to a point where you need to connect into what your actual body requires. I could sit here and say to you, Gina, right, you need this, this, and this, but don't do this, this, and this. But what does your body need? Like, what do you actually need? Because I
Exactly.
told you, it doesn't mean that that's going to help you. If you know what I mean, I can intuitively tell you, but you also need to feel into that yourself. And this is what I've discovered along this journey. This is, I've got to this point where I listen to what my soul tells me that my body needs.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like I've kind of recently started that journey
Mm,
where I've had some really, really, really close friends who are, very gifted. And I've kind of relied on them a little bit too much, and they've kind of relied on me a little bit too much. And it's kind of like instead of, and it got to feel a little unhealthy, like I'm just listening to this person. I'm not listening to what do I think about this?
mm,
I'm listening to what this person says their experiences are and just taking it for truth when I'm not asking
mhm,
myself what I believe about this. So I've had to say goodbye to a couple of people in my life and just kind of, and it wasn't even like a painful thing. Like these are really, really close friendships that have gone on for years. It kind of just felt like just taking off a sweatshirt or something, and you're like, oh, I feel lighter.
mhm,
I feel like I'm ready for a new. I feel like I'm ready to discover what I perceive my truth to be. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and to
And
use
that
my own
yeah, yeah,
discernment.
yeah. And this is what's been coming through to me recently, as I've been doing this work on myself. Like 2023 up until like now, I, sorted my vessel out. That's where I took action with regards to my vessel. There was one day I was sitting on the couch and I was like, hard spirit, get to the gym. I was like, all right, and like go to the gym, sign up now. And I went for it hard and fast at the gym. And the weight started coming off. Now I tried before and I tried hard, Gina. I tried hard, but it just wouldn't happen because I wasn't in that frequency. I wasn't in that vibration. I wasn't ready for it at that moment in time. So the body told me, now's your time. You've done all this work on your mind and your soul. Now's the time to work on the vessel. So I started working on the vessel. I started learning about fasting because my body felt like it needed that. And my
Mhm.
body does need that. My body does need to fast now and then. So I worked on my fasting. I worked on, the weights at the gym. I worked on cardiovascular first. And I could feel myself light up. My body needed that at that moment in time. And it might not work for you, Gina, because that's maybe not what your body needs. Your body might need some other form of, you know what I
My
mean?
body is definitely telling me to get to the gym. Like I felt this seriously, I've been feeling this like fire in me to like start moving. Like I see myself. I wake up in the morning and I like see myself on like a elliptical or whatever. And I just got a new job, so I'm waiting for my income to steady out so then I can
Mhm.
get a gym membership. But I'm like excited. I'm excited
Yeah.
to go to the gym and like feel strong again.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And like if that's what you're feeling, then go for it. If you know what I mean, like
yeah.
absolutely go for it. Because I tried so many years to get my bum into the gym and it just was not happening. And it was just that morning, sat on the couch, drinking my coffee, and I heard Spirit say, get your ass to the gym, sign up now. So that's what I did, and I signed up.
That's amazing.
Then I felt the call to go walking and get back out in nature and connect with the tree. And I actually have a beautiful fairy tree that, I connect with here in my hometown, and I take food for the fairies to eat off.
Oh.
Although I feel a bit rotten because I haven't been able to do it this summer because of foliage, and I couldn't get into the foliage because I'm quite little. So like I'd get lost in the foliage. So I spoke with them and said when it's winter and I'll be back with some more like honey Cheerios. That's what they like.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
My fairies anyway. Your fairies might be different, but my fairies like honey Cheerios. So I go along on my little walks and I started feeding the fairies. And then something else happened. I went into weight training. And
Oh, wow.
I started building up my strength. And what I've discovered for my body, for my vessel, it helps me with my clearing now. So my tools have changed. My tools have evolved as to how I clear my energy, as to how I ground, and as to how, I fully connect into my vessel.
Mhm.
And, if you said to me 5 years ago, I would be leg pressing 200 kilograms, I'd be like,
Dude, that's awesome.
but that's what I'm doing. I'm 4 foot 10 and a half. I'm ickle wee and I'm leg pressing 200 kilograms. I'm
That
like
is super
bench
cool.
pressing like 20 kilograms. Like I'm only ickle wee. But that that in itself goes to show you that when you really connect into yourself, you do your shadow work, you really look at the ugly truth. And I'm telling you right now, it's not been pretty for me. It's been horrendous. There's sometimes I thought I was going to fall off the wagon. I was going to lose my mind. There was always a tip that was given to me as I was doing this shadow work is it's okay to feel it. It's okay to feel everything you're feeling. It's okay to feel
Yeah.
anger.
You
It's
have
okay.
to. That's part of
Yeah.
it. That's the only way it gets released
Yeah. It's
is if you
okay.
talk about it and you feel it and you love it because
Mhm.
it's never bad. It's never a bad. It's none of it is bad. None of it is good. It's all basically neutral, but it's the perspective that you have with it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
You
it's
have to integrate. You don't reject, you don't dissolve, you don't I
mm,
mean, you can transmute, but, like, that's part of the whole integration is, like,
yeah.
loving these parts of yourself that have felt rejected for so long, and sorry. Sorry, I think I interrupted you and
No, not at all. No, you never interrupted me. Like,
oh,
it
okay.
came out when it needed to come out. But, it's okay to feel these things because when I felt angry on this journey, or when I felt like bitterness, or when I felt like just utter crap and didn't feel very much of the light, I used to punish myself.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling these things. I should be of pure heart, blah, blah, blah. But that's what makes us human, right? So,
Exactly.
what I learned is to feel all of those things, but ask myself why I'm feeling all of those things, like why. And what I
Yeah.
discovered was when I was feeling all of this anger, it was actually sadness. Okay. And the sadness can like represent as anger. So I was frustrated, etc. So then I discovered, well, why am I sad? And it helped me like connect more into my body. But what I will say is it's okay to feel all that you're feeling, but don't sit in it. It's when you start sitting in it and you start allowing it to take over, that's when you start to spiral. And, at the beginning of this week, I delved deep into something that I'd forgotten about. My consciousness had blocked out and it came up to the surface for me to actually deal with. And it was heavy and I could feel myself spiraling a little bit. Now, me as a soul and as a human doesn't like to share the itty bitty personal details about things, okay? Um Almost like avoids sharing things and has this fear. And what I discovered is, okay, and you guys will feel into this, and maybe this is a connection for all of us, is that I've never felt safe in this world. I've never felt safe. And
I agree with you.
I had to ask myself, why have I never felt safe? Like, what is it? Like, where is it that I've never felt safe? And, that was hard to connect. Okay, I'm going to be very honest. And what I've realized is, whilst I've been part of this world and I've never felt safe in this world, I've almost like put up walls as a form of defense and a form of protection. So, I then questioned, well, what is my authentic self? Okay, because I was so disconnected from the authentic self. And, speaking your truth, etc., and standing in your power, that's being authentic, right? But when you're so disconnected from yourself and your soul, how can you say you're being your authentic self when you don't know who you are? That's a question,
Exactly.
right? So, how do you connect in with that authentic self? And this has been a big, huge lesson for me because, um, you know, I've questioned whether I'm authentic or not. Being a human and on this journey, am I authentic? So, for me to be authentic, I really had to connect into that really dark, niggly corner that I was avoiding looking at. And it brought up a lot of mother wounding. And it brought up because, we've got wounding from, particular ancestral lineages, but we've also got wounding from like this human experience.
Mhm.
So I then had to bridge my consciousness into that wounding and like now what I do is when I do the shadow work is like I move my soul and see everything that occurred on like a cinema screen. And then I can feel that other person's perspective. I can feel how that other person was thinking. I could feel that other person's intention for me to understand why these things happened the way they happened. So I can then go into compassion and forgiveness and love. Okay. So that practice with this dark, dense energy of not feeling safe. And, like, I didn't even recognize or realize that I've never felt safe in this world until this week.
Oh, really? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
Oh,
I feel like that's always been a part of my emanation.
no.
And I mean, I've been working on it pretty intensely the past year, but yeah, I've always, I mean, and I feel like you and I have a lot of parallels when it comes to childhood stuff,
Mhm,
like parents who are not quite stable with
mhm,
addictions and with, codependency and different sort of unhealthy patterns. And a lot of it, I mean, comes from, the ancestral lines from both sides, but then also even in utero, your mother, depending on her state of mind, depending on her stress levels,
mhm,
physically have chemical makeups
mhm,
that
mhm,
make up the womb water that you're bathing in for 9 months, that you're growing in. And so, of course, that's going to affect your physiology on a physical level.
mhm,
So, if your mother has mental health issues or addiction or any of that stuff, or even just being stressed out, will
mhm,
definitely affect the
mhm.
uh,
How
the
you
uh,
feel. Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah,
So,
but there's also, I can't talk about too much about it now, but there's also a connection as to, that ancestral where I've never felt safe because of like, an experience that occurred. So that's kind of carried on until this lifetime where I had to connect the dots. Now it
mm,
was until I was meditating and I was feeling this deep, dark, dense energy that I almost threw up and I was like, what is this? Like, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Why am I connecting into what I'm connecting in? And there was an energy that presented itself, and it was very interesting because this energy is, known to be quite chaotic, but through the chaos of this energy it brought order. And I thought, it's interesting, like, why is this energy presented to me? So then I kind of pulled my life apart as such, and like, why is there being so much chaos in my life? Why is that presented? Why have I chose that? So I really started going in deep with regards to that. And I was like, okay, there's order coming. And what I realized with myself is that I retreat. So when I don't feel safe, I'll put myself out there and I'm like, hey, everybody, hi, I'm Kerry and I'm Bouncy and blah, 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 blah. And then I'll go, no, I don't feel safe anymore. And I'll hide.
mhm.
And it's like, I have to stop. I have to break that cycle now as the human, if you know what I mean. I have to feel safe. I have to feel safe within my own being and my own vessel. But how do I do that? So then I started locating and identifying where certain things that happened in my human life, this human life, where I didn't feel safe. And the biggest thing is talking about it, right? So
Yep.
I'm a
Yep. Yep.
big one where I won't talk about this shit, right? I won't talk about it because I don't feel safe talking about it. And I had to make that connection. Okay. I'll talk about things on a surface level, but when it actually comes to a deep level, I'll avoid it like the plague.
Mhm.
So I was like, for me to be fully authentic, I really have to own this shit now. And this is what shadow work's all about. It's owning your shit. It's recognizing your shit. It's really connecting into why you do the things that you do, why you say the things that you say. So, Gina, when you say you hate your body, why do you say that? Like connecting to why, like, and going deep and keep asking yourself, why do I say this? Why? And something, an energy will come up, or you'll see it visually and you'll see a memory. And what I've discovered is, and probably what a lot of people will tell you, that's on this journey, is that quite a lot of this stuff is connected into your childhood, but maybe not only
Yes.
this childhood, maybe previous childhoods. But in terms of your family and the addiction, etc., us as a soul, we choose the families that we come into. Okay.
Mhm.
And we choose the families that we come into to learn these experiences, to grow and evolve from these experiences in this lifetime, because this is what we're doing. And I could go on with regards to the gene codes within our cells and our DNA. It is literally within ourselves and our DNA for us to do this work, for us to do the shadow work. Because when we do that, it kind of activates and sends out a ripple effect into the collective consciousness, which then activates their cells, which then triggers them into stepping up into their consciousness and recognizing their own shadows and their own traumas. And it almost like that ripple effect, when we start doing the work and the shadow work within ourselves, it literally is raising the vibration and dropping the illusions. And the people that have been doing this work for a long period of time, you're a huge part of that. And what I've discovered is, like, I used to ask myself what my purpose is. Like, what's my purpose? Like, why am I here? Why am I doing this work? Like, what am I meant to be doing? And I thought it was the paintings, and the paintings are a big part of it because of the sacred geometric patterns, etc., that I receive. They do something on a cellular level, but they activate, like, the shadow work, the trauma work that's to come up to the surface for people to work on, right? And we all ask this question, and we all get lost within that question, don't we? So how can we be service? How can we be of service? And what is the purpose within that service? For me, what I believe is the purpose within that service is actually connecting to that authentic self and owning your shit, doing your shadow work, connecting the dots. Because when you start working on that on a cellular level, it creates that ripple effect. It's fascinating, and I've only bridged a little bit into the gene codes within the cells and DNA, because what I've discovered in this journey is I'm fascinated about DNA and how that works and how the paintings work. And it's like a form of light technology. And what is light technology? Well, it's all around us if we just look, right? So it's in your organite, it's in the paintings, it's, you get particular little patches that reflect your own energy back into your body to work on a cellular level that works with your amino acids. What's the amino acids? Well, amino acids is part of the consciousness. If you go in and look in, like, what's ayahuasca? Wow, like, look at ayahuasca, the visions that people see in ayahuasca. Oh, holy crap, it's sacred geometry. And, like, I don't know everything, right? This is what I'm discovering. And I get myself excited when I do this stuff and overwhelmed, and then I go, right, I need a sabbatical. I just need to be human. I just need to go and, like, dance in the garden and frolic in the sea and, forget about research and study for a little bit. And then I come back into it, again, and I go in deep. But there's so many things that we haven't even discovered yet.
Exactly. I mean, science knows nothing of spiritual DNA. There's no proof yet. So, yeah, there's so much dimensions and densities and frequency versus vibration. Like, there's so much that we're just now hitting the tip of the iceberg.
But is there no proof?
I mean, no tangible proof for science. Of course there's proof. We just haven't really found it yet. But I mean, maybe with, like, the Healy and other, what is that? Is that like an Apple product? Is that what it is?
No. What, the Healy?
Oh, I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It connects into, now this is what some other people don't like, because it connects into, like, your devices. So it can connect into your phone and blah blah blah, your iPad, etc., for you to read back. And some people are a little bit fearful of that, right? And that's okay. What I've discovered is that if I believe it, then it's going to happen, right? As I work on my energy, if I have a consciousness and a belief that that's going to happen to me, it's going to happen, because I've put that into the reality, I've put that into the field, and I'm calling that.
Exactly. And if you just have fearful thoughts,
Mhm.
then of course that stuff is just going to boomerang back to you.
Yeah, and that's what I believe, right? And that's not everybody's belief, because we're all in different levels, we're all in different consciousness, and I respect that and I own that, right?
Right.
But, this is what I've discovered in my journey. So, the Healy has taught me a lot about the quantum field, and I delved into quantum physics and quantum entanglement and how that works and how the universe works. Like, there's many, as you're doing this journey, there's many different things that will present to you for you to look into, and you'll feel into it, and then you'll drop it, But maybe a few years down the line, as you further evolve and you further grow and you further expand, you'll reconnect into that and you'll have a deeper understanding as to why that came into your life. Now, I'm talking when I was on my spiritual journey, I was like, I'm just spiritual. I felt pulled to start painting, and I did. I painted a painting. And I actually gifted it to one of my close friends, and she still has it to this day. And if you look
Aw.
at it, right? If you look at it now, she has one of my very first paintings. If you look at it now, it shows you the light aspect and the night aspect of the soul. Now, I didn't even know what I was painting. You see what I'm saying? I had no idea on a consciousness level, right? So ask yourself, if I had no idea and knowing what I know now, why did I paint something that was light and why did I paint something that was night? Right?
Well,
Would
I
I
think
become that consciousness?
that's part of your purpose, really. I feel like doing what we're doing right now, you just being on a camera and just talking, speaking authentically from your heart, your
Mhm.
experiences, I feel like that's probably one of the best ways that you can help people. And I mean, you've delved so deeply into shadow work. I feel like that's probably something that would benefit being placed in as a part of your healing work, because so many people don't understand what shadow work is. I didn't until fairly recently either. So I mean, that's what I would like to do as part of my healing practice, is to really let people have a better understanding of what shadow work is and why it's so important. So I feel
Mhm.
like you just being on camera, just being yourself, emanating your beautiful energy is part of why you're here.
Even if it's gobbledygook to some people, that's okay because I know I can.
Whatever, it's fine.
It's interesting because I've got a Springer Spaniel, and you know Springer Spaniels, they'll go round in circles, they'll chase their tail. This is what I do. Like, I'll talk about one subject, and then I'll jump to another subject, and then I'll talk about another subject. But there's always relevance, I feel, in what I'm talking. So, that's just who I am, and I accept that. That's just who I am as a soul. In terms of the painting, when I painted light and night, right? Spot on. I absolutely agree with you, Gina. But what I've also discovered is, regardless of where you are in a consciousness level, your energy is constantly reading the field, right?
Mhm.
Reading the room, reading the energy. Now, even though I didn't know what grounding was, I had no idea. In my world, at that moment in time when I painted that painting, it was just angels and tarot cards and blah, blah, blah. And if I remember, I could see what I was painting then. I didn't even know that was my third eye. I didn't even know that my third eye was activated. I was just like, oh, I just saw it in my head and I just went and painted it. But
Right.
there's a reason why I painted it, because my energy was reading the field. And your energy is always like constantly reading the field. So if we go back to the gene keys and the cellular DNA, etc., of absolutely everyone, and this is what I believe how this ripple effect works. Regardless of where you are in a consciousness level, your energy is always constantly reading the field, hence why we're always connected. Because, that person next to you's energy, they might not be in a consciousness level, but their energy field is reading your energy field and it's interacting. So this is where your light codes and your activations come in, because your energy, just by being you, just by doing the work, just regardless of where you are in a consciousness level, just by you stepping up for yourself and working on your mind, body, and soul, you're activating beautiful souls. And you're maybe not even aware that you're doing it.
Right.
And I had
Right.
no absolutely idea that's what I was doing, just being part of this journey in itself. Like, I'm so bloody grateful that I was, even though it was very traumatic, and I'm not gonna lie, it was absolutely traumatic. I cried for weeks on end when I was like yanked out of my vest. So like, look at this, it's time to wake up, for the love of God, right? So all right, I'm sorry. I was devastated. And what I've been saying and what I've been feeling this week, and this is just my perspective, right? Because we've all got different perspectives. And what I will say is, like, what I've said today, you take or leave whatever you need to take or leave and make it your own. And like, this has been a big, huge part of my journey. You make it your own. My paintings, you see what you see in my paintings, you make that your own. I just create the geometric patterns, and that's going to work on you on a different level. I'm not going to tell you it's going to do this, this, and this. It may work, like what works for me might be completely different for you. But in 2020, it's almost like this awakening to the consciousness, awakening to your whole being, right? So 2020 up until this point, it's been that for me, right? That's what it's been for me. However, I thought about 2024, and the 2024 is actually the awakening to the self, wakening up to who you actually are at the very core soul, at the 0 point of your absolute soul. Not like, as well as the human, what makes the human tick, what makes the human find joy, what makes the human happy, what does the human not like, etc. You're also bridging the soul into that. So what makes the soul happy, what lights up the soul, what does the soul actually,
Exactly.
and it's all like, boom. Sorry, that was a massive bang. And it's connecting into that whole essence of who the hell you are.
Right.
And it can be rather confusing, right? And for
I
me,
feel
it's
like,
not an easy
oh,
journey. This
sorry. I
no,
totally interrupted again.
no,
I was
go.
just gonna say, I feel like this, particularly this year, for a lot of people that I know, it's like the stuff that people used to do to kind of comfort themselves, what they
Mhm,
used to find joy in, what they used to find fun, just isn't working anymore.
mhm,
It's kind of like this wake up call, like, everybody, you guys need to wake up. You guys need to figure out that you're more than just a human, and that we have a lot of work to do. Like, the energy, like, with all the solar flares, with all the Schumann resonance, with all of the truth that's coming out, like, we really need to figure out that it's from the inside out. It's not, nothing that happens on the external is purely like an external experience. It's not, oh, this person is treating me badly, so I should just react, and it'll just be a reaction bouncing off of reaction. It's all on the inside, and it's all for us to be able to learn and understand ourselves better.
mhm, mhm. And that's why I'm so grateful for the beautiful souls that have been in my life, that have given me the hardest lessons, that still
Yeah.
give me lessons, because, you know, relationships are really important. Now, I went into meditation last weekend, and as soon as I entered, I heard, "Hey, cowboy," and I was like, "Cowboy?" I was like,
All
"What do you
right.
mean by cowboy? I'm not a cowboy." Right, anyway, that's just my goofiness. I was like, "Cowboy?" And all I heard was, "It's 5:52 time." And then I was like, out. And then I woke up, like, with my mouth wide open, in a pool of drool, right? So I was like, "What happened?"
Oh, yeah.
Right?
What happened?
But I looked it up, and 552 is all about relationships and the independence within that relationships, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like we're stepping into that time. And for me, this journey for me this past year has been a very interesting journey, and I've done some silly things. I've made some silly mistakes, but what I've also learned is that I have to make those mistakes in order to, learn and grow and evolve, right? But some of my mistakes can have had an effect on particular relationships in my life.
Mhm.
So, what I've learned with that is, not getting triggered with that regardless. At the end of the day, you can only do you, and you can only do the best that you can, right? But these
Exactly.
relationships that we have, is, can we accept that person? Can we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, you got me? Because they necessarily might not have the same belief that you have, and we all have different perspectives. So, for instance, Gina, what does authenticity mean for you? What does that actually mean for you?
Um, Admitting to myself that I don't have all the answers, that there's a lot about myself that I still don't know yet,
Mhm,
and that I'm a work in progress,
mhm,
Like I don't I don't know everything.
mhm.
Like, and
Yeah,
I'm not in control of so many aspects of my life. And just admitting that these are parts of myself. I have a very very strong tendency to try to control things, to keep everything controlled, and it's like this whole process is teaching me that I have no control over so much, and to just be okay with that. To be okay where I am, and to admit to other people that I don't know everything. That's like a
mm,
big deal to me, is admitting to other people that I don't know what the F is going
yeah,
on.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful because when we have these platforms, right? Myself included, we kind of put pressure on ourselves to really know everything that needs to be known. Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, nobody's going to know absolutely everything, right? So you own that, and that's beautiful. That's authenticity to you, right? And authenticity to me is connecting into the self and owning that, like owning who you are. So there we go. There's two different perspectives of authenticity, right? So if I do something that necessarily doesn't match your perspective of authenticity, would you say that I was being inauthentic?
I can't say what your authenticity is because I'm not you. I don't have your perspective.
Exactly. So this is where I'm finding with regards to relationships. Just because my perspective is something, it doesn't mean that that's going to be that other person's
Right.
perspective, right?
Right.
So, can I accept that in my life? Can I have that in my life instead of being triggered and saying, you should be doing this and you should be doing that because that's what my version is? For
Ah,
me,
yes.
it's not about that now. Okay. It maybe was, and it served its purpose because we learned our lessons with regards to that. Now, as you're evolving into consciousness and you're becoming a highly consciousness being, and it's only this week that I'm really stepping into this now, right? And this has been discussed with me, for like a few months. As you're evolving into consciousness and as you're doing your shadow work and you're really stepping into this consciousness bridge, you also have to be aware of the consciousness choices that you are making with regards to that.
Mhm.
So, what do I mean by that? The choices, because we all have choices, and the choices that I make with regards to my consciousness. Have I asked myself what's the consequences with that? Does that feel good? Where is that coming from? Is that coming from fear, or am I organically feeling that's something I should do? Am I just doing that because, I'm in a little bit of lack just now? You see what I'm saying? So am I just doing certain things because there's a fear attached to that? So
Mm.
with the consciousness, we also have to be aware with how our choices are affecting our relationships in our life. And for me, I've been saying this week is a bit of a mind fuck, right? And it is because you can feel yourself going round in circles. And then in a little bit, I was scared of being me because I was like, I don't want to hurt this person by the choices that I make. Right. Okay. This is why I've also learned in terms of consciousness, Gina, is trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust the choices and the decisions that you make. If there's no trust and you don't trust yourself, and I'll put my hands up, I didn't trust myself, right? If there's no trust within yourself, yeah.
Mhm. Oh, I have to plug in my I have to plug in my computer. Don't mind me, I'm listening.
Okay. If there's no trust within the self, then how can you trust your decisions and your choices?
Yeah, that's the question.
How can you trust your relationships? How you get, like, it's not just authenticity, there has to be trust within that authenticity. And, you do get to that point on your journey. For me, everything's felt a little bit numb this past wee while, because it's like I'm trying to figure this out, because, as I've done the shadow work and I'm connecting deeper into depths of my soul and the shadows within my soul, this is actually coming up now. Like, where's my authenticity? Where's my truth? Do I trust? And today I was thinking about this trust, right? And with regards to feeling safe. Do I
Mm.
need anything external of me to make me feel safe? Where do I find that safety?
I personally have been thinking about this a lot too. And I think a lot of it has to do with trust in your connection to the all that is, your connection to source.
Mm.
Um, I don't mean to like take this in a weird
Mhm.
direction, but with the political stuff going on in the US, that was man, what a great lesson that was for me. Oh, can I just tell you about it real
Yeah,
quick?
go for it. Yeah, I'm interested.
Okay. So, I'm a, I'm a divine being, a fractal of source. I'm a spiritual soul, but at the same time, I am also a 3D human person. I
Mhm.
mean, but 3, 4D, bouncing back and forth. And so we had this election, and the person that got in was not my choice, and I had a lot of stuff to process shadow wise, a lot. And so that first day, I just sat there and just transmuted so much, and it made me realize that that there's, I mean, first off, there's so much fear in the collective right now regarding this. And I was really feeling it. I was feeling the collective's fear. I was feeling my own fear. And I was like, why am I feeling so afraid of this? Why? If I'm a divine fractal of source, I'm infinite. Like this life is, I know that this life is not all that there is. I know that I've been reincarnated countless times. Like, why am I feeling this fear? And that boom, that's what it was. It was that I don't feel connected to source sometimes. When I'm really like sometimes, like most of the time I feel like I'm pretty connected, and I'm learning and I'm growing more, but sometimes I have these contraction moments, these moments where it like really touches a nerve, and I just feel like I clam up like a shell, like a little
Mhm.
clam. And I'm like, oh, I'm disconnected. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh, it's going to be the end of me. And I had to realize that, like, no, you are always truly, truly feel it in your body. You are
Mhm.
always connected. And also, you have no control over this situation. You have zero control. So, what good is it going to do to get yourself caught up in this situation? It does no good. It only just collects fear in my body.
Mhm.
So I just let go. I let go. And
That's
I was
beautiful.
I mean, I had to. But it was so much easier this time
Mhm.
than the
Mhm.
last time this happened. Probably 8 years ago, I was just in fear for a good 4 years straight. I was angry. I just I mean, I was fully, like, unconscious as well, but, like, I was in so much fear and rage and anger and just yeah, it was gross. But it took me, like, a day, and I processed it, and then I was like, "You know what? Just let it go."
Yeah. Yeah, because we can't control the outcomes. And, with what you said there with regards to that, this control, for me, control's been a big part of this journey. Like I've always tried to control outcomes of how that would look like or how GalArtic would be, or and this is where the organic flow comes in now. And this is where I asked with regards to safety and trust. Like, how do you feel safe within yourself and how do you trust, right?
Yep.
And what I learned, and I absolutely agree with you, and today when I was like asking myself this, like, how do I trust and how do I find safety? Well, obviously I find safety within myself, but for me, how do I find that safety within myself? And it's like, well, allow yourself to trust fall with the universe, with creator, with source. It's
That's
just,
awesome.
like, just allow whatever will be. And I've always said, whatever will be will be. But did I actually really understand that on a consciousness level?
In
My
your cells of your
yeah,
body.
in the cells of my body, and it's only just today that I've went, like, just let everything organically happen. Like, even with this podcast, if sees it, one person sees it, one, one person sees it, then one person sees it. Like, whoever will see it, if you know what I mean. And whoever it's going to resonate with, it will resonate. And I'm feeling that in my heart. Whoever's going to resonate with it will resonate with it. It doesn't have to be mass audiences. It doesn't have to be, followers. It doesn't have to be anything like that.
Nope.
Just talking about it is already creating that energy field. It's already been put out into that vast quantum field that we're all connected to, that we're constantly reading, regardless of what or where you are on a consciousness level. And, throughout this journey, I've felt a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, and I've had to really ask, is this my fear or is this like a collective fear? And I feel
That's a tricky one,
like, mhm,
figuring
mhm,
that out.
mhm. And that's where I use the connect the dot techniques. Well, why am I feeling this and blah blah blah? And if I can't get to an answer, then really is it mine? Does that make sense? And this
Yeah.
is how I figure it out for myself. But other people can just tune in and go, nah, it's not mine. And that's good, if you know what I mean. So, everybody's different. We're all on different levels. We all have different techniques. We all do different things. It doesn't mean that you're not doing this work. The fact that you're actually focusing on yourself and you're discovering who you are and what works for you, that's the purpose. That's what you're here for. That's what I believe, right? People might be like,
Right.
oh, full of shit. That was if you feel that I'm full of shit, then you own that. Like, well done. Say it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But for me, that's why we're here. It's like that whole connection, and maybe repeating myself and going around in 101 circles. But that's just who I am as well. Accept me, leave me. Like, has taken a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of patience with who I am to get to this point of my journey. It's
I
not
think
been.
you've done a good job.
Uh, do you know, I feel like I'm just crawling along the side going, oh my God, is this ever going to fucking end?
No, it's not going to. This is it. This is we chose this path, and that's how it's going to go.
Oh, the amount of
But
times
it's going to get easier. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it,
already gotten so much
it's
easier.
all we can do. And, our beautiful Joanne, she's a beautiful, like, sister of mine. And she says, every day it gets better and better, Kerry. And I'm like,
Exactly.
it doesn't feel like it's going to get better and better for you. It doesn't feel like that. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
every day's going to get better and better. And it does. If you believe it, of course, it's going to get better because we're in that consciousness, we're in that vibration now. The planet's raising, regardless if you want it to raise or not, it's going to raise. And this is why all these truths and all these illusions and everything are falling around us, because we're
Right.
awakening us at a consciousness level. People are seeing through the bullshit now. And that's
Exactly.
beautiful. But
Well, I just wanted to say, and also groups like your Patreon group are so helpful, so
Mhm.
helpful. You know, like I have found a sense of community. I've found kind of like a safe space to be able to listen and to kind of think about my perspective versus other people's perspectives. I've been able to share, and I mean
Mhm.
that's like that's so valuable to me. Really. So I feel like you're doing so awesome with that, with the Patreon group. And I would invite people, you know, um if you feel like you would enjoy some sort of safe space to speak about that stuff, like her Patreon group is really great. And I just feel like everything you're doing is so I'm just so happy. I'm so happy I had the opportunity to talk to you, and I feel like the work that you're doing is so special and just it's
Thank
awesome.
you.
And we haven't even really talked about the Organite yet,
No,
but we
but we
will. I should have you on. We'll do another episode. Maybe we can just talk about Organite.
yeah, we can just talk about Organite. I'm still figuring out Organite. My Organite is just channeled through me and I just go with the flow. I still don't quite
Right.
understand like where I am with my where I was with my paintings. Oh, I have to paint it and I have to create this pattern, but fuck knows what that means. That's where I was, and I'm just gonna be honest. But as I've worked with it and I've evolved with it, I'm getting it now. So that's where I'm at. Like I'm at the beginning of the Organite journey, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm creating this, but I've just to do it. I don't know what it does. I don't know how it's going to react with everybody.
You know what it does. You know.
To a degree, to a degree. But
Right.
you know, my perspective of what that does might be somebody else's like different perspective. With regards to the Patreon, what I will say is it's not like I'm going to come in to the Patreon room and say, you should be doing this, this, and this. What that is, and what Gina's brought up, is like it's a safe space. And there's beautiful souls from all different walks of life, from all different pathways, from all different consciousness that, you know, come together and they talk about things, and they open up, and it gives them a space and a platform to feel comfortable in doing that, because it's not easy talking about this stuff. And it's not like, I don't know about you, but there's maybe like people within your vicinity in your life where you can't just open up and say, this is what I'm feeling. And I'm like, oh my God, get her in the loony bin, you know?
I've had that experience with my wife. It's been a journey, you know, like we've been together what, 14 years now, and I just started having these experiences probably 4 years ago. I started seeing light ships. I started seeing all this orbs and all these other things, and it was terrifying opening up to her and telling her like this is what's
Mhm,
going on with me, because she's a very logical person. She's
mhm.
very like science math based, and it was very difficult opening up, but it was probably the best thing I've done, because now we have we have pretty good really interesting conversations, but we have
Mhm.
good communication, and I feel like I feel safe.
You feel safe, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
But not
beautiful.
everybody does, so it's really
Oh,
great to
not
have
every-
a space where you can talk with other people.
Yeah,
So,
and there's absolutely no judgment. Like I don't feel that. I
mm-mm.
don't feel that. And you know, what I've recognized within my own Patreon space is like I let everybody else talk, but when it actually comes to my feelings, I don't talk. So I was like, oh no, we need to change that, because I let people kind of lean on me a little bit, and I was like, I've got to allow people, you know,
You
to
gotta lean on everybody else
lean on
too.
everybody else too. So it's like that reciprocation there, and that's important in terms of this relationships as well. It's not an expectation or
Exactly.
anything like that, but you know, if you're constantly sharing information then with that soul, or that soul's constantly sharing information with you, then are you constantly like interacting in that way as well? So that's also what I'm learning at this moment in time. So that's what that space is all about. It's just a safe space for everybody to talk when they feel like they need to talk.
Right.
and not have any judgment. And, this is what I'm feeling. Am I going crazy? No, you're not going crazy, because we've all gone through that. And these spaces are really important. And I'm not going to come in and be almighty and saying, this is what's happening this week and this is what's happening with the energies. I'm like, right, talk. What we're talking about. And that's what that space is all about.
Yeah, I love that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite part about it, is that there's no like definitive leader of the group and everyone is free to share. So I will I'll put all of your details and stuff in the description box
Yeah.
under the video. We might have to break this up into 2 parts because it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sorry,
I
Gina.
know it flew by, huh?
I was like, we don't know what we're talking about. We'll just go with the flow. I was like,
Yeah,
we
right.
don't even know. And I've probably rambled about
No,
utter rubbish.
no way. No way. Well, so I'm going to end the recording,
Okay.
and I implore anyone who's interested in Kerry's work to check out her website, GalArtic.
Yeah.
And she has a YouTube channel and a Patreon as well. And like I said, I'll put all of your information at the bottom, and you should check her stuff out because she's she's awesome. Like
Oh, thank
her
you.
tools are brilliant. So
Thank you.
that's it. I'm gonna end it and see you guys later. Bye.
It's a pleasure. Love you. Bye.